After years of silence, Danny Koker has finally broken his code of loyalty. In recent interviews and behind-the-scenes revelations, the Count's Customs owner has started naming names, identifying the 5 employees who nearly destroyed everything he built. These aren't just stories about people who left the show. These are cautionary tales about trust, betrayal, and what happens when the wrong people get too close to your life's work. For over a decade, Danny maintained a strict no-gossip policy about former employees. Win or lose, succeed or fail, he kept their stories private. But something changed. Maybe it was the passage of time, or maybe it was watching how some of these departures affected his remaining crew. Whatever the reason, Danny Koker is finally ready to tell the truth about the 5 people who pushed his patience to the breaking point and why their actions still impact Count's Customs today. Before we dive into the names that Danny wishes he could forget, we need to understand the man who hired them. Danny Koker didn't stumble into success. He built it methodically, starting with a childhood spent in Detroit garages, where his father taught him that cars weren't just machines, they were extensions of your soul. Growing up in the Motor City during its golden age, Danny absorbed more than just mechanical knowledge. He learned the value of craftsmanship, the importance of reputation, and most critically, the power of loyalty. His father, Danny Koker Sr., was a musician who performed with legendary gospel groups, but he was also a man who understood that real success came from surrounding yourself with people who shared your values. Those early lessons shaped everything Danny would later build. When he started Count's Customs in Las Vegas, it wasn't just about creating a business. It was about creating a family. He hired people who shared his passion for perfection, his respect for classic American automotive culture, and his belief that every project deserved nothing less than complete dedication. The transition from local garage owner to television personality began almost accidentally. Danny's regular appearances on Pawn Stars as a motorcycle and car expert caught the attention of History Channel executives who recognized something special in his authentic enthusiasm and encyclopedic knowledge. When Counting Cars launched in 2012, it wasn't just another reality show, it was a window into a world where craftsmanship still mattered. But television success brought unexpected challenges. Suddenly, Danny wasn't just managing a small crew of dedicated mechanics, he was running a business that had to deliver consistent entertainment while maintaining the quality standards that built his reputation. The pressure was enormous, and not everyone could handle it. Danny's hiring philosophy had always been simple. Find people who live and breathe automotive culture, who understand that every project reflects on the entire shop, and who treat customers' cars like their own prized possessions. For years, this approach worked perfectly. The original crew felt like old friends working together on shared dreams. But as the show's popularity exploded, the dynamic began to shift. Fame attracted a different kind of employee, people who saw Count's Customs as a stepping stone to celebrity rather than a place to perfect their craft. Danny found himself having to evaluate not just technical skills, but character, loyalty, and the ability to handle sudden fame without losing focus on the work. Recently, in a series of candid interviews, Danny has begun to open up about the employees who tested his patience beyond the breaking point. These aren't just stories about workplace conflicts, they're about fundamental betrayals of trust that cut to the very core of what Count's Customs represented. Joseph Frontier's name still makes Danny's jaw tighten. As the company's bookkeeper, Frontier had access to everything: payroll records, expense accounts, client payments, and most importantly, Danny's trust. For months, Frontier quietly embezzled over $75,000 from Count's Customs using company funds for personal expenses, including a Range Rover down payment and vacation travel. Danny describes the discovery as one of the most devastating moments in his professional life. When you're running a family business, you assume the people handling your money understand what that means, Danny recently explained. Joe didn't just steal cash, he stole trust. He stole the assumption that we could focus on building great cars without looking over our shoulders. The theft wasn't just about money. Frontier had allegedly forged Danny's signature on multiple documents and manipulated financial records to cover his tracks. For a man who prided himself on transparency and honest dealing, the elaborate deception felt like a personal attack on everything he stood for. The legal battle that followed was equally draining. Danny had to prove not just that money was missing, but that Frontier had systematically abused his position. The case also involved the staffing agency that had placed Frontier, with Danny arguing they had failed to properly vet someone who would have access to sensitive financial information. What bothers Danny most, even today, is how the theft affected his entire team. Suddenly, everyone was under suspicion, he recalls. We had to implement new procedures, new oversight, new ways of handling money that made everyone feel like they weren't trusted. Joe's actions poisoned the atmosphere for months. Scott Jones represented everything Danny thought he wanted in a shop manager. Organized, detail-oriented, and focused on keeping projects on budget and on schedule. During the early seasons of Counting Cars, Scott served as the practical counterbalance to Danny's artistic vision, the voice of reason that kept ambitious builds from spiraling out of control. But success changed Scott in ways that Danny found increasingly difficult to manage. Scott started believing his own hype, Danny explains. He went from being the guy who kept us grounded to being the guy who thought he was the star of the show. The tension between Danny and Scott became a regular feature of the show, with Scott frequently challenging Danny's decisions in ways that felt less like professional disagreement and more like personal confrontation. Behind the cameras, the situation was even worse. Scott began making unilateral decisions about projects, sometimes contradicting Danny's direct instructions to crew members. The final straw came during a particularly challenging build when Scott allegedly went directly to a client to complain about Danny's approach to their project. "That's when I knew he had to go," Danny recalls. "You can disagree with me in the shop. You can push back on timelines or budgets, but you never undermine the business with a client? Never." Scott's departure was handled quietly, with the official explanation being that he was moving to Tennessee to be closer to family. While that was technically true, Danny admits the real reason was that their working relationship had become toxic. "Scott was a good manager when he remembered he was a manager," Danny says, "but he started thinking he was a partner, and that's not what we needed." Mike Henry's custom airbrush work was legendary, transforming ordinary surfaces into extraordinary art that became the signature of countless Count's Customs builds. His wild personality and distinctive style made him a fan favorite, but Danny reveals that Mike's ego eventually overshadowed his talent. "Mike was incredibly gifted," Danny acknowledges, "but he started believing that his art was more important than the cars we were building. He'd spend days perfecting a small detail while the rest of the build sat waiting." The problems went beyond just time management. Mike began demanding creative control over entire projects, arguing with Danny about design choices that affected the overall vision. He started talking directly to clients about modifications without consulting Danny, sometimes promising work that wasn't feasible within the project timeline or budget. The breaking point came during a high-profile build for a celebrity client. Mike had spent weeks on an elaborate airbrushed mural that looked stunning but completely overwhelmed the classic lines of the restored vehicle. When Danny asked him to scale back the design, Mike reportedly went to the client directly to complain about artistic censorship. "I respect artistic vision," Danny explains, "but at the end of the day, we're building cars for clients, not art galleries." Mike forgot that his job was to enhance the car, not dominate it. The relationship deteriorated further when Mike began missing deadlines and showing up late to filming sessions. Danny tried to work with him, understanding that creative personalities sometimes need different management approaches, but Mike's behavior became increasingly unpredictable. Danny is more reluctant to discuss Shannon Aikow in detail, acknowledging that Shannon's departure was different from the others. As the lead motorcycle builder, Shannon had been responsible for some of the shop's most impressive two-wheeled creations, and his technical skills were never in question. "Shannon was one of the most naturally gifted builders I've ever worked with," Danny says, "but somewhere along the way, he just stopped caring about the show, stopped caring about the deadlines, and maybe stopped caring about the work itself. The problem, according to Danny, was that Shannon became increasingly isolated from the rest of the crew. He would arrive at the shop, work on his projects in silence, and leave without engaging with the team dynamic that had always been central to Count's Customs' success. More concerning was Shannon's apparent discomfort with the television aspect of the business. While other crew members embraced the cameras and enjoyed interacting with fans, Shannon seemed to resent the attention. He would avoid filming sessions, give minimal responses during interviews, and sometimes simply disappear when producers wanted to capture his work. "I tried to work with him," Danny explains. "I understood that not everyone enjoys being on camera, but the show was part of the job. We tried to minimize his screen time, tried to let him just focus on building, but he seemed checked out from everything." The final decision to part ways was mutual, according to Danny. Shannon wanted to focus on his own projects without the pressure of television production, and Danny needed team members who were fully committed to the Count's Customs brand. The employee who disappointed Danny most was someone he still won't name directly, referring to him only as a guy who I thought understood what we were building here. This unnamed individual was hired during the show's peak popularity and quickly became a fan favorite due to his humor, work ethic, and apparent loyalty to the Count's Customs family. "This one hurt the most," Danny admits, "because I genuinely liked him. He seemed to get it. The culture, the standards, the importance of treating every project like it was your own car." The problem began when this employee started developing his own following on social media, using his Count's Customs connection to promote personal projects and business ventures. While Danny initially supported his entrepreneurial spirit, the situation became problematic when the employee began criticizing Count's Customs policies and procedures online. "He started airing our dirty laundry on social media," Danny explains, "complaining about deadlines, making jokes about clients, posting pictures of work in progress without permission. He was using his platform to undermine the business that gave him that platform." The situation escalated when the employee began soliciting work from Count's Customs clients for his own side business, essentially competing with his employer while still on the payroll. Danny discovered the situation when a longtime client mentioned they were considering hiring his employee for a separate project. "That's when I knew we had a real problem," Danny recalls. "It wasn't just about competition, it was about trust. How can you work for someone while actively trying to steal their business?" The final confrontation was private, but Danny makes it clear that the employee's departure was not voluntary. "Some bridges you can repair," he says. "Others you have to burn before they burn you." Reflecting on these difficult experiences, Danny has developed a more sophisticated approach to hiring and managing his team. The Count's Customs of today operates with clearer boundaries, more structured oversight, and a deeper understanding of how television fame can change people. "I learned that talent isn't enough," Danny explains. "Character matters more than skill, and loyalty matters more than personality. You can teach someone to be a better mechanic, but you can't teach them to be a better person." The experiences also taught Danny the importance of clear communication about expectations and boundaries. New employees now go through a more extensive orientation process that covers not just technical requirements, but behavioral expectations and the professional standards that define Count's Customs. Perhaps most importantly, Danny learned to trust his instincts about people. "When someone shows you who they are, believe them," he says. "I wasted too much time trying to fix people who didn't want to be fixed." Despite the challenges and disappointments, Count's Customs continues to thrive with a core team that Danny describes as the strongest he's ever assembled. The current crew understands both the opportunities and responsibilities that come with being part of a successful television show. "We're more selective now," Danny explains. "We take our time getting to know people before we bring them into the family, and we make sure they understand what that family means." The shop's current success is built on the lessons learned from past mistakes. Better systems, clearer expectations, and a deeper understanding of how to maintain quality and integrity while operating in the public eye have made Count's Customs stronger than ever. Danny's willingness to finally discuss these difficult experiences reflects his growth as both a businessman and a leader. He's learned that protecting his team sometimes means being honest about the people who don't belong, and that loyalty must be earned and reciprocated. "I don't enjoy talking about the people who didn't work out," Danny concludes, "but I think it's important for people to understand that building something real takes more than just good intentions. It takes commitment, integrity, and respect for the people who trust you with their dreams." The story of Count's Customs isn't just about custom cars and television success. It's about the ongoing challenge of maintaining authenticity and values in a world that often rewards neither. Danny Koker's journey from garage owner to television personality to seasoned business leader offers lessons that extend far beyond the automotive world. As Count's Customs continues to evolve, Danny remains committed to the principles that built his success: exceptional craftsmanship, genuine passion for automotive culture, and most importantly, surrounding himself with people who share his vision of what the business should represent. The 5 employees who tested his patience may have taught him valuable lessons, but they also reinforced his belief that the right people make all the difference. The next time you watch Counting Cars, remember that behind every finished build is a team of people who chose to be part of something bigger than themselves. And sometimes, the most important part of building that team is knowing when to let the wrong people go.